Hey everyone, Taz here with the Pedagogist. Are you an instructor who is stressing out about teaching next week during the election? You're not alone. A lot of us out there are struggling to figure out what is the best approach to enter the classroom when we know everybody is going to be stressed out to the max. Well, I can tell you that there are 3 things that you should not be doing. These are 3 things that a lot of us are destined to do because, these are common mistakes. They're also mistakes that a lot of us made back in 2016, and we learned the lesson the hard way. So if you are an instructor who is struggling to figure out how to approach entering the classroom next week because of the election, I've got some ideas for you, so keep on watching. So the first mistake that a lot of instructors are going to make, but not you because you're watching this video, is failure to acknowledge the moment. Yes. A lot of you out there, especially who are teaching in courses that are not maybe in the social sciences or humanities, might feel like, ooh, is it really politically correct to bring up the election? Maybe it's better if I just avoid it altogether. I don't want to make a mistake. I don't want to start something that I don't know how to finish, or, this isn't really relevant to my content. Well, guess what? It is relevant. Even if it's not directly relevant to your content, which it probably is. It's relevant to your students. It's relevant to your learners. It's relevant to your institution. It's relevant to you, to the people around you. And so of course it's going to be impacting how your students are feeling and experiencing the classroom. And moreover, how you're experiencing teaching in that space. And so the number one mistake that a lot of folks make is they don't acknowledge the moment. And so what I'm going to challenge you to do is acknowledge the moment. That means, number 1, being transparent that this is not an easy time for anyone. Moreover, that it's a more difficult time because the stakes are higher for students who are coming from minoritized backgrounds, who are underrepresented in your field, or people who have family members or close relatives and friends who are going to be disproportionately impacted by the outcome of this election. And so just by saying that you acknowledge all of those stakes up front can make a big difference in students feeling like you care about themselves and their well-being. Another way that you need to acknowledge the moment is talking about how you're feeling as the instructor. That doesn't mean that you have to be forthright with your political views, but you can also express that you want to make sure that this space is a space where people can feel okay being distracted, okay being stressed out, okay being not fully 100% engaged with what's happening, because at the end of the day, we're only human. And so that means that students are going to show you empathy for whatever stress and mistakes you make in that moment. And at the same time, you're going to give them empathy because you know that they're doing the best that they can. Finally, if you feel like you're going to get into the classroom with all the best intentions of acknowledging the difficulty of this moment and then freeze up, I have a tip for you. Write it down. I'm serious. Write it down. Write down exactly what you want to say. A statement, an honest statement to your students about how you want to show true, transparent, authentic vulnerability with them. A statement that shows what your priorities and principles are as an educator right now during this incredibly difficult time to center your students' well-being above all else. And so to assume that you're going to be able to show up on that day not knowing how you're going to feel and just be able to spit that out is probably highly unlikely. So what I recommend is that you write out what you want to say to them and practice it. Practice it because this might be one of the most important statements that you make all semester. So the second common mistake that a lot of instructors are destined to make is assuming that we know what our students need in the moment. We don't know how our learners are going to feel next week. Heck, we don't know how we're going to feel next week. I mean, I don't even know how I feel right now as I'm recording this video. So chances are that whatever, plan you have to enter the classroom, you got to build in some flexibility. You got to be able to react in the moment. And the best way that you can do that is to get information from your learners. Find out how they're feeling and what they need. Give them a chance to step back and figure out how they're feeling and what they need, especially if you plan on covering actual course content that day. So one quick way that you can do this is have them write, a quick 5-minute reflection. Some questions that might prompt this reflection include, how are you feeling right now? What are the things that are stressing you out? What's something that you're feeling hopeful about? What's something that you can do for yourself so that this class is easier to get through? What's something that I and your peers can do for you to help you get through this class? Those 5 questions are a great framework to get started. I'm sure there are other questions that you would include as well. But especially for that last question on how is it that you and the rest of the class can support them, if there's a way for you to get that information from them, let's say through a direct message in Zoom or an anonymous poll through Poll Everywhere, find out what it is that you can do for them, because these are things that you might not have thought of. One thing might be, hey, it would be great if you could move a deadline, or hey, it would be great if we could take a couple extra breaks today, or hey, it would be great if we could end class a little bit early because I've just been in Zoom meetings all day. These are all things that you might actually be able to accommodate that you haven't thought about until you find out from your students. So while I don't recommend you asking them to submit the entire reflection, if there's a way you can get that information about how you can support them right at the beginning, that's gonna guide you to a course plan that's actually gonna be supportive instead of harmful for your students. I'll also add that we might have assumptions that students are even gonna actually come to class next week. I know that a lot of instructors out there have decided to just cancel class or reframe the class period as open study or extra office hours. It really is completely up to you and what is possible through your institution and your department. I know for a lot of graduate student instructors, they don't have as much power to do things like cancel class, but I would definitely recommend that if you are gonna hold class, record it, and do whatever you can to make sure that participation does not count against them next week. Honestly, I think that this is one of the most humane changes that you can make. So allow people, even those who have the best of intentions, to come but just can't or have to leave early because they are just too stressed out, that you're not robbing them of an educational opportunity. So please, 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 if you can't cancel class, if you can't make it a flexible open study hour or office hour, record as much as you can of that lesson. The third mistake that a lot of us made in 2016 and a lot of us are destined to make this time around is to assume that people know and are prepared to talk about the election. Now, it's very possible that you have course content that is directly impacted by the election, right? And I can imagine that for actually the majority of courses that are out there, whether you're in the social sciences talking about social movements, whether you're teaching world history, whether you're teaching about climate science, we all have stakes in the election. That being said, the idea that people can just enter into a high stakes conversation without any groundwork or preparation is incredibly harmful and dangerous. Now, a lot of you instructors out there might already have a set of discussion guidelines that you use in your class. If you have those, this is the time to pull them out. If you are going to have an activity, make sure you think through it and use those guidelines and think about what you're going to do in order to make sure that this discussion is as productive as possible. I would highly recommend making sure that any discussion that's structured in this class is structured around class content and not just general feelings about the discussion, because you don't want it to devolve into a debate. You should also go in with a plan of how you're going to redirect conversations that are going to get maybe a little bit out of hand. And I hope that in future videos, I can talk a bit more about what handling conflict in the classroom will look like. But for now, if you're not equipped to create a space, or if you haven't already created a space where students can engage on these high stakes topics respectfully and productively, I would not recommend going in and asking them, forcing them to talk about the election. So that is the third mistake that I've seen a lot of folks make that you can avoid altogether. All right, there you have it. 3 mistakes that a lot of us are gonna make, a lot of us have made in the past around teaching during election week. Now, I hope this video was useful. I hope that it gave you some ideas of things that you might try and some good takeaways that maybe you're going to share with your colleagues. If you found this useful, I highly suggest that you share this with other people who are in the same boat as you. Hopefully, like I said, this is the first of many videos to come. The Pedagogist is a pet project of mine that I am really excited to launch this semester. So if you have other topics that you're stressed out about, especially around online education and inclusive teaching, please reach out. You can find me at Twitter at @thepedagogist. All right, everyone. See you and good luck next week.